So I just got done watching the latest Netflix show, Chicken Nugget, where a woman has turned into an actual chicken nugget. So let's dive right into it here. Now, before you click away, I'm being deadly serious. There is a Netflix show called Chicken Nugget in which a woman turns into an actual chicken nugget. It's a Korean series, and this series honestly isn't what you're expecting it to be. So we're going to talk about the goods, the bads, and I'm going to talk spoilers at the end of the video. So there's going to be timestamps. So if you've seen the show and you know what happened and you want to hear my thoughts, there's going to be a spoiler section towards the end. However, if you haven't, I'll be putting timestamps in the description. And if you are new to the channel, you do like these kind of reviews, we do weekly entertainment news videos, there's going to be a Lego short in terms of Wolverine's claw along with some X-Men stuff coming out. So if you do like that type of video, do consider subscribing to the channel, smash the like button, share the video, hit the notification bell, just all that YouTube stuff. And also keep an eye out, we're going to be doing the Ghostbusters retrospective reviews in build up to the Ghostbusters Frozen Empire movie along with a tier ranking. So if you like tier ranking videos, this is the channel for you. But all of that YouTube stuff out the way. So in terms of this show, again, like the plot is a woman who turns into a chicken nugget by going into a machine, and it's up to the friend and the father of the woman, the daughter, to try and get her back to human form. And I shit you not, the trailer looks batshit crazy, and honestly the show overall is really not what you're expecting it to go. You go through some dark dilemmas that the characters have to face and everything like that. But in terms of the positives I've got to say with the show, in terms of the cast, first of all, I feel like the cast does an absolute fantastic job as you're following the father and you're following the friend who's trying to make sure that this woman turns back to a human form from a chicken nugget. You get some great performances. Granted, and you see it in the trailer, there's some over-the-top performances, some over-the-top characteristic choices that they go for, but overall when they're going for like the more grounded approach, the character performances and the emotions that you get from these characters and just their comedic timing and their chemistry, like in terms of the two characters, the rest of the cast, honestly, I've seen them in previous work. I can't really pinpoint in terms of the shows or the movies I've seen them in, but I have seen a lot of these casts before. They blow the performances out the water. Granted, what they're given may not be some of the strongest writing you'll ever see. They do a fantastic job emoting it, investing in the characters. So I have to give huge props to the cast. And there's just some great comedic elements in there. Like, of course, you've got a human turning into an actual chicken nugget. Now, in the first couple of episodes, once this happens, you get to see like the shit that has to go down and to make sure how this person or this chicken nugget doesn't get eaten. There's some moments where the dad nearly has a heart attack because he thinks that one of the co-workers has eaten the actual chicken nugget that's representing their daughter. There's some moments where you have to make sure that the chicken nugget is warm and not too cold. So there's just some great comedic elements in there that actually does work well. And so like the first couple of episodes as you're going through, because the premise of the show, as I said, is this woman turning into a chicken nugget, but the whole point, and you get it in the first episode, is that this random machine is being brought to their workplace because they work with machines. And so this machine, this purple machine, arrives at their workplace. The guy, the main character, the guy with the yellow pants, brings this machine in, and that's how the girl ends up inside the machine, turning herself into a chicken nugget. So then the whole investigation, the whole story of where this machine came from, you're invested in it, is so intriguing as they're dropping little elements into what's going on with this machine and where it's coming from. You're really invested in it. So in the first like half of the show, I would say the first couple of episodes, as they're going through this, you're really invested in what's going to happen, where this is coming from, who's behind all of this, and the bigger aspect, the bigger lore that's taking effect with this machine. So I really enjoyed what they were building up towards in the first couple of episodes, especially when they were going through like the camera footages to see who is that person that delivered it and then the person behind that person that delivered the machine. So there were some great elements in there that I feel like worked really well, that you get invested in it and you're just intrigued into each episode. And even as, because not only is it just these two characters, the father and the friend, you get other characters getting involved, and just the way everything is being tied in together, I think just works really well. Granted, you've got various different cast, various different members, various different characters that all get tied into it and interwoven into everything as part of like the main story and the main lore, but it's just the way everybody's backstory or certain characters' backstory and then everything is being tied together does work and does blend into how everything does connect together eventually when you do get to like the last act, the third act, the finale, the last couple of episodes. But as I mentioned, like in terms of the show, because obviously you've got the comedic elements in there, you're gonna have some wacky ideas when you've got one person turning into a chicken nugget. You even get like, in terms of the show, like this machine turning somebody into a stone, somebody into a caterpillar. So like you're gonna have that comedic element and just the ridiculousness of it. But when it goes to like the more serious tone and the more dark tone, especially with what the father goes through towards like the latter episodes as it's building up towards the final, and the dilemma he puts himself through, the questions that are being asked of him and his morality, I really think that works so well. You get to see what he's gonna have to do, what sacrifices he'll have to make, the kind of character that he is, and I just really was invested in that. Like for me, as much as over the top and wacky the father was, along with like his co-worker or his intern apprentice, I guess you can call him, like as much as like they were over the top in terms of their performances with Chicken Nugget, once it gets to like the latter half of the show, there's just some dark serious tones and elements that honestly just work really, really well, and it just turns on its head. Like the show turns straight away. Like I said, you're not expecting what's gonna happen in the show when you watch the trailer, because for me, when I saw the trailer and I see this woman turning into a chicken nugget and seeing the father and this friend having to try and revive her, I was not expecting the turn and the direction that they went with the show, which just blew me out the water. And honestly, for me, in terms of like the father storyline, I think definitely has some morality that you could even bring up into real life situations. Obviously, nobody's going to turn into a real life chicken nugget, but there's some questions that you have to be asked with the father, and I just think that works really well. In terms of the show itself, each episode, there's 10 episodes altogether. Each episode is about 25 to 30 minutes long. It takes about 5 hours, just over 5 hours, honestly, so you're not going to spend too much time on the show itself. But in terms of the show overall, in terms of the positives, there's some great comedy elements, there's some great story that you can work with in the first half of the show, and some great implementations in terms of the character choices and the decisions that the father has to make, which I think works really well. So with that side of things there, I think you could definitely enjoy it. However, as we move on to like the negative side of things here, like I said, with the show, you're thinking that it's going to go into one direction and it just completely turns into a whole different direction. In my positives are focusing more on like the first half of the show, because the second half of the show just gets so wacky and out there that, I'll be honest, it kind of lost me towards like the last few episodes, because it just got so ridiculous. And not in the sense of somebody turning into a chicken nugget ridiculous, in terms of like other elements that are being brought into it and where the machine came from. Because not only do you have like this way too over the top performances by certain characters, the middle of the show, like from like I would say episode 5 to episode 7, is very lore heavy, like information dumping. So if the show kind of slows down, like the first couple of episodes you're building up towards like what's going on, who's behind the machines, where did it come from, so you've got this investigation side of things here. But then the show sort of just slows its pacing down quite a bit to just focus on like this lore, what's going on with the machines, the background and all that stuff. But then you get a lot of like lore when it comes to each character and their backstory, and just a lot of information is being dumped on you that kind of at certain times just gets way too overcomplicated and it's kind of hard to follow, especially with like some family dynamics and characters that are being involved into the machine and into the project itself. It just gets way too over the top ridiculousness, way too complicated, and it's just honestly at point hard to follow. And even towards like you're getting towards like the latter half, towards the end of the show, it just, like I said, gets way too over the top ridiculous, way too sci-fi, and makes it more complicated than it should have been. You're even getting a couple of like backstories when it comes to like the past, and like I said, I feel like those kind of elements just didn't really need to be there because of like just how much lore dumping they're putting in there. And even certain characters and certain backgrounds of their characters just felt way too extreme, way over the top in terms of like the direction, way too over the top when it comes to like you going from one point of the rainbow all the way to another point of the rainbow. It just felt way too over the top. Even towards like the conclusion and what happens, whether this character, whether the daughter turns back into a human or stays as a chicken nugget. Like I'm not going to reveal too much, or I'm not going to go into like spoilers right now, but the whole element and like what happens in the conclusion, I just felt like didn't really make any sense, just felt way too ridiculous. And then as you're getting towards the finale, as the characters and like what happens after everything takes place, it just felt like it was rushed a little bit. Like certain things that happened to certain characters just felt like completely out of the blue. And then the way the show just ended, I just felt like it was very, very weak. like the finale did not land for me whatsoever. The latter half, like the last couple of episodes, just really felt flat and just got way too wacky. Really lost me in terms of the plot and the story that they were going for. The show started off really well and very promising, but then once you got added into like certain elements of certain characters and the backstory of the machines, and then what happens in the finale and all of that, it honestly just got way too over the top and way too ridiculous that it's just kind of hard to follow. And I honestly just checked out at that point. So yeah, the finale really fell flat for me. So a promising start and a promising elements just makes you tip over the edge at that point. So the premise and the setup worked well, but then the execution towards like the latter half really just didn't work for me here. So I would say that if you are into like some kind of sci-fi elements, if you do like a bit of comedy, a bit of like seriousness, a bit of wackiness, you might enjoy the show. And like I said, it's a 5-hour binge watching series. You'll have a good time with it if you're into that. But if you want a more grounded approach, if you don't want like this too wacky over the top type of stuff, I don't think you'll enjoy it as much, especially because of how far it goes in the latter half of the show. So if I was to give it a score, because normally I don't give scores or grading or anything like that, for me I would probably give this like a 7 out of 10, maybe like a B- if I was going to be grading it, because there's definitely some elements that I would definitely change. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. By the sounds of this, do you think you'll be checking it out? Would you give it a miss? Let me know in the comment section down below, because we're diving into some spoilers aspects of this now. So if you haven't seen the show, be warned, this is a spoiler section. So if you haven't seen the show, I'm going to be talking about some spoiler aspects here, because honestly I am a bit lost for words when it comes to the backstory and the whole aspect of what's behind the machines, because we come to find out, of course, that these machines have been on planet Earth for 2 years. They are basically part of an alien race. So like these 4 aliens come down with these 2 machines, and these machines, they turn themselves into humans, and we come to find out that they've lived for 200 years on planet Earth. The whole backstory with the whole aspect of the 200 years, like the prior history, I felt like that was a bit too long, dragged out a bit too much. I feel like they didn't need to spend that long on the backstory or like the history elements of that with those characters. Like these people in this village find the machines, one person turns into like the king or the person that's in charge of like this village, and then ends up killing the other 2. Like I just felt like all of that portion was just wasted and just didn't need to spend that much time on it. So I felt like that could have just been cut short. The whole alien aspect, like I said, you're going from having this person turn into a chicken nugget with this machine and you're investigating this, to then basically come to find out that it's because 4 aliens who run a chicken nugget shop are the ones that are behind it, are the ones that bought this machine from their home planet, and these aliens have been living here for 200 years. I just felt like that got way too over the top and just felt so wacky, and felt like going from this not a believable story but like just a ridiculous premise that could work, to just this sci-fi element, sci-fi show with these aliens being involved. And then as we're like building up, you come to find out that these machines are losing power, and the only way for this character to be brought back from chicken nugget to human form is that they need to take this chicken nugget back to the planet with the machines to recharge. It's going to take about a day, but 1 day on their planet is 50 years on our planet. And I really didn't understand that logic or that concept, because you go from this person they spent the whole show trying to turn into a human form, only to then basically say, okay, we need to take her to the planet, you'll see her in 50 years. And that's the kind of like dark tone and dark elements I was talking about with the father, and what he has to risk and what he has to sacrifice. Because with him doing that, he basically decided that he's going to go live in the woods for 50 years, and then 50 years later, when they show these characters and where they are, you're showing like the boy, like the guy who was wearing yellow pants throughout the whole show, he has become this superstar because that was his dream of being a singer and songwriter, so that's fine. And then when you get to like the father, who's apparently 106 years old, is like jumping through the woods and does this sort of teleportation shit that you're doing, and then come to find out that like once he does meet up with like the yellow pants guy, coming to find out that his daughter needs to be on the planet for another 50 years because of the machine still not being able to recharge, and you get to just basically just indicating that the dad has died. So it just felt really weak in terms of like all of that. Like, you got him transporting through different places in the forest to then just killing him kind of off screen because he has to wait another 50 years. It just honestly was making no sense whatsoever. And then the whole conclusion of that is like these purple aliens who took the girl to the planet. We realized that because the machine aren't recharged due to like the nuclear weapons that Earth has, so Earth has become like an abandoned planet for aliens to visit for some reason. All the machines have been destroyed, so they only have that one machine which still needs to be recharged. So this basically confirms that they can either have her back into the planet for another 50 years, or he gives the guy the button to basically press and then go back to any point in time, which he pushes the button only to end up with the very first sequence where she actually comes in before she turns into a chicken nugget. And it just felt like the execution was so weak and so poor, especially towards that finale. I just feel like the second half really dipped and just fell off a cliff compared to the very first half of the show, with the whole alien aspects, with them waiting 50 years only to wait another 50 years to then having a time machine button that you press to go back in time. It lost me completely at that point. But those are my thoughts, those are my opinions of the show, The Chicken Nugget. I really want to know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you've enjoyed it, if you hated it, please let me know down below. And again, if you are new to the channel, do consider hitting that subscribe button. Keep an eye out. We're going to be doing the binge watching show for the X-Men series, so that's going to be coming out most likely tomorrow, along with the Ghostbusters retrospective review. But thank you all so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. This is YK Reviews. Peace.